Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into Amazon's 2000 shareholder letter.
Okay.
And, you picked a fascinating time for this, right in the middle of the dot-com crash.
Right.
When Amazon's stock was down, over 80%?
Yeah, something like that.
Talk about trial by fire. What were you hoping to glean from this letter in particular?
Well, it's all about context.
Yeah.
Imagine the tech world in 2000,
Yeah.
like a complete bloodbath. Companies were imploding left and right, and here's Bezos seemingly unfazed laying out his vision for the future.
Right.
It's a glimpse into the mind of a leader who not only weathered the storm, but came out stronger on the other side.
I like that. Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay.
The letter starts with some pretty impressive growth numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, they went from 14 million customers in 1999 to 20 million in 2000.
Shoot.
Sales more than doubled to $2.76 billion.
Wow.
And their operating losses were actually shrinking. They even scored an 84 on the American Customer Satisfaction Index. Wasn't that the highest for any service company at the time?
It was. Yeah. And that's the paradox Bezos highlights right off the bat. The market's panicking.
Yeah.
The stock is plummeting, but the underlying business is thriving.
Right.
He even quotes Benjamin Graham reminding everyone that the market is a voting machine in the short term.
Oh, yeah.
Swayed by emotions, but a weighing machine in the long term, reflecting true value. It's a classic Bezos move, focusing on the fundamentals even when the world seems to be falling apart.
Right. Yeah, but wasn't it risky to be so bold, especially in that environment?
Yeah.
He talks about making these bold bets, investing in things like digital and wireless technologies,
Yeah?
even pouring money into smaller e-commerce companies, some of which, like Pets.com, totally flopped.
Right.
I mean, couldn't that have backfired even more dramatically?
Well, he uses the analogy of a land rush, believing that early and aggressive expansion across various categories was key to dominating the internet. Now, in hindsight, he admits they misjudged the timeline
Yeah.
and the challenges these single-category companies would face, especially as capital dried up.
Right.
But he doesn't shy away from the decision, emphasizing the need to make these bets even if some don't pan out.
So it's almost like he was saying, we're going to swing for the fences, and if we strike out sometimes, so be it.
Yeah, kind of.
But there's a method to this madness, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a calculated risk-taking approach at play here.
Okay.
Remember, this is the era of dial-up, and Bezos is already talking about bandwidth, disk space, and processing power becoming exponentially cheaper and more accessible.
Wow.
He predicted, based on trends like Moore's Law, that Amazon could utilize 60 times more bandwidth per customer within 5 years without increasing costs.
That's amazing.
He saw the future of e-commerce not just as a cost-cutting measure like traditional retailers, but as a way to enhance the customer experience and drive real revenue growth.
He even projected that 15% of all retail commerce might eventually move online. That seems pretty spot on in retrospect. But imagine making that prediction back in 2000.
Right.
What did people even think of online shopping back then?
It was the Wild West of retail,
Yeah.
but Bezos saw it as a vast untapped market with the potential to revolutionize how people buy and sell goods. And central to this vision is his relentless focus on the customer. This isn't just lip service.
Right.
It's a core principle that permeates every aspect of his strategy.
Okay.
And to truly grasp this, we need to go back even further to the 1997 shareholder letter, which he reprints in full in this 2000 letter. It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Look at our track record. Look at the principles that have guided us from day one.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Why reprint the 1997 letter? What's the significance there?
It reinforces the consistency of his long-term vision and customer-centric approach. The 1997 letter outlines his core principles: prioritizing customer value over short-term profits, relying on data and analysis to make investment decisions, fostering a culture of learning from both successes and failures, and being bold, even audacious, in pursuing market leadership. It's all there in black and white years before the dot-com bubble even began to inflate.
That quote about choosing cash flow over accounting appearances always jumps out at me.
Yeah.
It shows that he's not playing the Wall Street game. He's building something real, something sustainable.
Exactly. And he's transparent about it with shareholders.
Yeah.
He explains his thought process, the why behind his decisions. It builds trust and shows a deep understanding of the forces shaping their industry. He's not reacting to market trends. He's anticipating them, making strategic bets and preparing for the long haul.
So we have this incredible growth story playing out against the backdrop of a market meltdown. Bold bets that sometimes pay off, sometimes don't. And a visionary leader who's playing a different game altogether. What's the next layer of the onion we should peel back here? How do these seemingly abstract principles actually translate into tangible actions and strategies that fuel Amazon's growth?
Let's dive into the specifics. Remember those seemingly abstract principles from the 1997 letter.
Yeah.
They weren't just empty words. They were put into action through very concrete strategies that were, in many ways, revolutionary for the time.
All right, give us the play-by-play. What did they actually do differently?
Take selection, for example.
Mhm.
Amazon couldn't compete with physical bookstores on square footage,
Right.
but online. The possibilities were limitless. They could offer a vastly wider selection. Bezos said it would be like a store occupying 6 football fields if it were physical.
Wow.
They were leveraging the internet to overcome traditional limitations.
And it wasn't just about offering more, right? It was about making the experience better. They invested heavily in user experience, making their website easy to search and browse and available 24/7.
Exactly. They introduced innovations like gift certificates and one-click shopping features that seem commonplace now, but were revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
They obsessed over reducing friction in the buying process, making it as seamless as possible.
Then let's not forget about pricing. Bezos talks about aggressively lowering prices to increase customer value. They weren't afraid to sacrifice short-term margins to gain long-term market share.
They understood the power of pricing in a way that many traditional retailers didn't, and they weren't relying on flashy ad campaigns. They focused on building a strong brand through organic word-of-mouth marketing, which was incredibly effective in the early days of the internet. Think about it. A trusted recommendation from a friend carried a lot of weight back then, maybe even more than a polished ad.
And speaking of trust, they formed strategic partnerships with companies like AOL and Yahoo, leveraging their existing user bases to expand their reach. That's brilliant. It's a classic example of leverage.
It was a strategic move that allowed them to accelerate their growth and reach a wider audience without having to build everything from scratch. They were playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
It's like they were thinking several moves ahead, anticipating future trends, and positioning themselves to capitalize on them.
And it all stemmed from Bezos's core philosophy, customer obsession. It wasn't just a buzzword, it was baked into every aspect of their strategy. They relentlessly focused on delivering value to the customer, even if it meant making decisions that might not have made sense to Wall Street analysts focused on short-term profits.
So they were willing to take a hit in the short term if it meant building something truly great in the long run.
Exactly. They were playing the long game, and they were willing to do what it took to win.
It's a reminder that building a successful business isn't just about having a great product or a clever marketing campaign. It's about understanding your customers' needs, exceeding their expectations, and building a brand that they trust and rely on.
It's about creating a customer-centric culture that permeates every level of the organization, from the engineers designing the website to the customer service representatives handling inquiries. Everyone at Amazon understood that the customer was king.
And this customer-centric approach, combined with a willingness to make bold bets and a relentless focus on long-term value creation, ultimately laid the foundation for Amazon's extraordinary success.
And that brings us to a key question. Why is this 25-year-old shareholder letter so relevant today?
Yeah, what can we really take away from this?
The answer lies in the timeless principles. It reveals these aren't just strategies for selling books online. They're fundamental principles for building a successful and enduring business in any industry. The answer lies in the timeless principles. It reveals these aren't just strategies for selling books online. They're fundamental principles for building a successful and enduring business in any industry.
Okay, so we've got this incredible growth story happening while the market's crashing all around them. Bold bets that sometimes win and sometimes lose, and a leader who seems to be playing a different game entirely. But how did these big ideas actually work in practice? How did Amazon turn these principles into real-world action?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the beauty of these letters is that Bezos doesn't just talk about abstract concepts. He gets into the nitty-gritty of how they put these principles to work.
So give us the inside scoop. What were some of their key moves?
Let's start with selection. Amazon couldn't match the square footage of a physical bookstore, but online. The sky was the limit. Bezos said it would take a store occupying 6 football fields to hold their inventory if they had to do it physically.
Wow.
They were using the internet to completely leapfrog the limitations of the physical world.
But it wasn't just about offering more stuff, right? It was about making the experience better than going to a store.
Absolutely. They were obsessed with user experience. The website had to be easy to search, easy to browse, and available 24/7. They even introduced things like gift certificates and one-click shopping, which seem totally normal now, but were game changers back then. Imagine trying to explain one-click shopping to someone in the year 2000. They'd probably think you were making it up.
It's funny how what seems revolutionary one day becomes so commonplace later on, but you're right that frictionless experience is a huge part of what we expect online now. What about pricing? Wasn't Amazon known for being super aggressive on that front?
They understood the power of pricing in a way that many traditional retailers didn't. Bezos talks about aggressively lowering prices to increase customer value, even if it meant sacrificing short-term profits. They were playing a long game, betting that lower prices would lead to more customers and greater market share in the long run.
That makes sense, but wasn't it a gamble? I mean, what if it hadn't worked?
It was a calculated risk,
Mm.
but they had a deep belief in the power of scale. They figured if they could get enough customers, they could negotiate better deals with suppliers and further lower their prices. It was a virtuous cycle they were trying to create. And it's worth noting that they didn't rely on flashy ad campaigns either. They focused on building a strong brand through word-of-mouth marketing, which was incredibly effective in the early days of the internet. A trusted recommendation from a friend carried a lot of weight back then, even more so than a fancy ad.
That's so true. We all relied on recommendations from friends and family back in the dial-up days. We didn't have the endless stream of online reviews and social media influencers to guide us.
It's exactly. A personal recommendation was gold back then. And speaking of savvy moves, let's not forget their strategic partnerships. They teamed up with companies like AOL and Yahoo, tapping into their massive user bases to expand their reach. It was brilliant. They didn't try to build everything from scratch. They leveraged existing platforms to accelerate their growth.
It's like they were constantly looking for ways to amplify their impact. They weren't afraid to partner with potential competitors if it meant reaching more customers. That takes a certain level of confidence and long-term vision.
It all goes back to customer obsession.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a slogan for them. It was the driving force behind every decision they made. They relentlessly focused on delivering value to the customer, even if it meant making choices that Wall Street analysts might scratch their heads at.
So they were willing to buck the trend to go against conventional wisdom if it meant doing what was best for the customer.
Precisely. They were playing a different game, and they weren't afraid to make bold moves.
It's inspiring, really. They were building something lasting, something meaningful, and they weren't going to let short-term pressures dictate their actions.
And that's a powerful lesson for anyone building a business or even pursuing a goal in any field. It's about having the courage to stick to your principles, to focus on the long term, and to put the customer at the heart of everything you do.
Okay, so we've unpacked their specific strategies, but I'm curious about the bigger picture. How does all of this connect to the challenges and opportunities we face in the business world today? It's a different world now than it was back in 2000.
That's true. The technological landscape has changed dramatically, but many of the underlying principles remain the same. We're still grappling with rapid innovation, intense competition, and a constantly evolving marketplace. And in this environment, I'd argue that the lessons from Amazon's early days are more relevant than ever.
So how do we apply these lessons to the modern business world? What are the key takeaways for entrepreneurs, investors, and anyone trying to navigate this ever-changing landscape?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's about embracing long-term thinking. It's so easy to get caught up in the short-term pressures, the quarterly earnings reports, the latest market trends. But building a successful and enduring business requires a different mindset. It requires a willingness to play the long game, to make decisions that might not pay off immediately, but will ultimately lead to sustainable growth.
It's about resisting the temptation to chase quick wins and focusing on building something truly valuable and lasting.
Exactly. And it's not just about setting long-term goals. It's about having the discipline to stick to them even when things get tough, because they will get tough. Every business faces challenges, setbacks, and unexpected obstacles. But it's the companies that can weather those storms, that can stay focused on their vision even in the face of adversity, that ultimately succeed.
And a big part of that resilience comes from having a strong customer focus, right?
Absolutely. Customer obsession isn't just a marketing tactic. It's a fundamental business principle. It's about understanding your customers' needs, exceeding their expectations, and building a brand that they trust and rely on. And in today's world, with so much competition and so much noise, it's more important than ever to build those strong customer relationships.
So how do you actually do that? How do you cultivate that level of customer obsession in a modern business?
It starts with a genuine desire to serve your customers, to solve their problems, and to make their lives better. It's about listening to your customers, understanding their pain points, and constantly seeking ways to improve their experience. And it's about going above and beyond, exceeding their expectations, and making them feel valued and appreciated.
It sounds like it's about building real relationships, not just transactions.
It's about building a community around your brand, a group of loyal customers who not only buy your products, but also advocate for your company and spread the word to others.
So we've talked about long-term thinking and customer obsession. What about boldness? Bezos was clearly not afraid to make big bets, even when the stakes were high. Is that something we should all be striving for in today's business world?
I think there's a delicate balance to strike here. Boldness is important, but it shouldn't be reckless. It's not about throwing caution to the wind and hoping for the best. It's about taking calculated risks, making informed decisions, and being willing to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah.
And it's about having the courage to fail because not every bet is going to pay off.
That's a good point. Failure is often seen as a negative thing, something to be avoided at all costs, but you're saying that it's actually an essential part of the learning process.
Absolutely, failure is inevitable, especially when you're trying to do something innovative or disruptive. The key is to view failure not as a defeat, but as an opportunity to learn and grow, to extract valuable lessons from your mistakes, and to apply those lessons to future endeavors.
So it's about having a growth mindset, embracing the challenges and setbacks as opportunities for improvement.
Exactly, and it's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable taking risks, experimenting, and learning from their experiences. Because ultimately, it's the companies that are willing to push the boundaries, to try new things, to learn from their mistakes, that will thrive in the long run.
It sounds like Bezos was really intentional about building that kind of culture at Amazon.
He understood that culture is a key driver of innovation and growth. He fostered an environment where people felt empowered to take ownership, to share their ideas, and to challenge the status quo. And he created a system where people were rewarded for taking risks and learning from their experiences, both successes and failures.
So we've got long-term thinking, customer obsession, boldness, and a culture of learning. What's the final piece of the puzzle here? What's the one thing that ties all of these principles together?
I think it's perseverance. It's the understanding that building something truly great takes time, effort, and a willingness to weather the inevitable storms. It's about having the grit and determination to stay the course, even when things get tough, to overcome obstacles, and to never give up on your vision.
It's about having that unwavering belief in what you're building, that unshakable commitment to your goals, even when the world around you seems to be doubting you.
Exactly. And it's a quality that we see time and again in successful entrepreneurs and leaders. It's the ability to keep going when others would give up, to stay focused on the long term, even when the short term is chaotic and uncertain.
It's almost like having a marathon mindset, knowing that it's not about how fast you start, but about how you pace yourself, how you endure the challenges, and how you ultimately cross the finish line.
And I think that's a powerful metaphor for anyone trying to achieve anything meaningful in life, whether it's building a business, pursuing a passion, or simply striving to be the best version of themselves.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you said earlier. You mentioned that these principles aren't just about business, they're about life. Can you expand on that a bit? How can these lessons from Amazon's journey be applied to our personal lives, our relationships, our goals, and our aspirations?
That's a great question, and it's something I think about a lot. Because at their core, these principles are really about how we approach life, how we navigate challenges, how we make decisions, and how we define success. They're about having a long-term vision, not just for our careers, but for our lives as a whole. They're about building strong relationships, not just with our customers, but with our families, friends, and communities. They're about taking risks, not just in business, but in our personal pursuits. They're about learning from our experiences, both the good and the bad. And they're about persevering, about having the grit and determination to overcome obstacles and achieve our dreams.
It's about living a life of intention, of purpose, of constantly striving to be better and to make a positive impact on the world around us.
I think you nailed it, and that's something that I find incredibly inspiring about Bezos and the story of Amazon. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to achieve great things, to make a difference, and to leave a lasting legacy. But it starts with having the right mindset, the right principles, and the unwavering commitment to pursue our dreams with passion and purpose.
So as we transition into the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a challenge. How can you apply these principles to your own life? What bold bets will you make? How will you cultivate a culture of learning and growth in your own relationships and pursuits? How will you embrace the marathon mindset and persevere in the face of challenges?
The answers to those questions are unique to each individual, but the journey of discovery, of self-reflection, and of personal growth is one that we can all embark on. And it's a journey that I believe can lead to a more fulfilling, impactful, and meaningful life.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's so easy to kind of get caught up in the day-to-day, and lose sight of that bigger picture.
It
But
is.
those fundamental principles, that mindset
Yeah,
really makes a difference both in business and in life.
absolutely. It's about taking those kind of abstract ideas and turning them into concrete actions,
Right.
into habits, into a way of life.
Mhm.
It's about making that conscious choice to embrace those principles and to let them guide your decisions, your interactions, and your overall approach to the world.
And it strikes me that Bezos, even back in 2000, was already living and breathing these principles.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't just talking the talk, he was walking the walk.
Right.
And that authenticity, that congruence between his words and his actions,
Yeah.
that's probably a big part of what made him such a compelling leader.
You hit the nail on the head. People can spot a phony a mile away.
Right.
But when they see someone who truly believes in what they're saying, who's willing to put their money where their mouth is, and who's not afraid to take risks and make tough decisions,
Yeah.
that's when they start to pay attention. That's when they get inspired.
It's about building trust not just with your customers, but with your employees, your investors,
Yeah.
and the world at large.
Exactly.
It's about demonstrating through your actions that you're the real deal, that you're not just in it for the short-term gain,
Yeah.
but that you're building something meaningful, something that will stand the test of time.
And that's what I find so compelling about the story of Amazon.
Hmm.
It's not just about the incredible growth, the technological innovations
Right.
or the financial success. It's about the underlying philosophy,
Yeah.
the principles,
Yeah.
the unwavering commitment to a long-term vision.
Mhm.
It's about the audacity to dream big, to take risks, and to never settle for the status quo.
It's almost like they were on a mission not just to build a company, but to change the world. And you know what? They actually did change the world.
did.
I mean, they revolutionized the way we shop, the way we consume information, the way we interact with technology.
Unbelievable.
I mean, they disrupted entire industries, created countless jobs, and pushed the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely.
And they did it all while staying true to their core principles, to their customer-centric approach,
Right.
and to their long-term vision.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It's a pretty remarkable story when you think about it, and it's a reminder that we all have the potential to make a similar impact, to create something meaningful, to leave our mark on the world.
It all starts with that belief, that inner conviction that you have something valuable to offer, that you can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about taking action, about putting in the work, about persevering through the challenges, and about never giving up on your dreams.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on. This deep dive into Amazon's 2000 shareholder letter has been a journey of discovery, of insights, and of inspiration.
It really has.
We've explored the principles that guided Amazon's success, the strategies they employed, and the lessons we can all learn from their remarkable journey.
Absolutely.
We've talked about long-term thinking, customer obsession, boldness, a culture of learning, and the power of perseverance. And we've challenged you, our listener, to apply these principles to your own life, to your own pursuits, and to your own aspirations.
We have.
So as we wrap up, we leave you with this final thought. What will your legacy be? What impact will you make on the world? The answer, my friend, lies within you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.